What's going on, blue collar hustlers? If you haven't seen what a 1940s era super Sylon 8-roll American ironer looks like, you're getting ready to. I'm not going to walk you through the entire repair on this. Believe me, I would love to. I just didn't have that much time to piece everything together. I had two different recording devices. One of those broke, so I'm unable to complete the entire footage that I was trying to record that day. For the most part, you're going to get exactly what I was doing here, why I was doing it. So let's talk about this machine and what was going on. Now, this particular piece of machinery, if you look at it, to me, it represents what true made in the USA machinery looked like back in the heyday. We didn't have machines that was meant to do everything for us. This particular machine right here was made back in the 1940s by the American Laundry Machinery Company. It's what's referred to as a flat ironer, a super Sylon, the Beast, the Mangler. Stephen King even made a movie of something similar to this one. Believe me, I've seen a guy get his hand stuck in between the rollers on this thing, and it burnt him to the bone. It literally baked his muscles to the bone until we could get him out. But like I said, this is a truly impressive machine right here. The basic functionality of this machine is to put linens through it, whether you're talking about contour sheets, flat sheets, pillowcases, scrub tops, flags, and so on. It runs on a feed table over top of some ribbons, underneath some rollers. It goes around the chest and onto two different aprons that are underneath it. The chest on this is actually hooked up to a boiler, and it keeps it about 300 degrees at all times. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Comes out the other side of those aprons, it drops it down onto a folding table. Depending on what type of machine you got, this thing will fold it for you and stack it up nice and neat, or it'll drop it out and you end up folding it by hand. Now, these were common among industrial factories, any type of industrial laundry facility out here. We're talking about hotels, motels, casinos, hospitals, medical facilities, you name it, and there's machines like this that's been all over this country, but this is probably one of the few left in operation in the entire United States for its age. They do not make parts for these things anymore. Whenever something breaks down, and believe me, I've been there, we've had something break down on this once before, and basically we had to get the owner up. He got a hold of one of his buddies, got on a private jet, flew from Kentucky down to Alabama to have a machine shop specifically make the parts for this thing. If I'm not mistaken, it was the sprocket on the end and the banjo where this thing actually raises up and down at to hold pressure. Everything on this is mechanical. Sprockets, bushings, rollers, big old gears and pulleys that run from one end of it to the other. Had a customized clutch, which they no longer make, so we ended up bypassing it. We ended up hooking a gear reducer down on the end of it, adding a sprocket to the outside of one of the rollers so it would become the pull roller. The main drive shaft, the herring pulley, whole bunch of moving parts on this thing, and you absolutely had to maintain it if you wanted it to stay in operation as long as it has. Now, obviously, I got a lot of stories I could tell you involving this factory, these machines, and stuff like that. We'll just save that kind of content for later on. This place was actually established back in the early 1920s as one of the biggest laundry facilities in the entire state. We're talking about days whenever the trains was what was delivering the stuff back and forth because people didn't have washers and dryers, and that's really not that long ago. So machines and facilities like this one was vitally important to communities all over the country. This one had one of the longest running contracts in the entire state with the largest hospital in the region. They're actually older than the local hospital here. And this was at that moment in time where I was deciding to take a step back from wrenching. I was wanting to get out of the automotive world, the machine equipment repairs, the small engine boat repairs, all that stuff. I was wanting to take a step back from that and go into a different direction for a few years. This around the time whenever the elderly owners was taking a step back from wanting to run the facility and turning it over to the children. It wasn't by choice, it was by the simple fact that they had a lot of health issues and some tragedies occurred. But the son was coming in and he was wanting to know how to work on this thing, what to do with it. You see, a few years back, New Year's Eve, this thing caught on fire. They was trying to hook up some electrical wires in an electrical box. The owner and the maintenance technician at the time was doing this with live wires. A spark came out of those live wires, ended up setting the machine on fire. So the fire department come out, and you know how they are. They got to pull out their hoses, whip them around, and spray something before they leave. One of the guys who turns on and off the boilers for the day went downstairs and let off all the boiler pressure, thank God, or they would have been in for a world of hurt when they sprayed that machine. When you try to super cool something that's really thin antique metal, and it's got all kinds of pressure, big steam pressure built up inside of it, it's just not a good idea. But anyhow, fire department come in, they sprayed this thing, and then they ruined the machine. Like I said, they don't make parts for these anymore, and those rollers never had an issue up until the point where the fire department done that. You used to be able to change the padding on this thing, the aprons, and all that stuff about every 3 years. Well, ever since the fire department come in and sprayed the machine, it was developing rust underneath the padding of those rollers. When I say rust, I'm talking about this stuff looked like confection sugar underneath those rollers, and it was bright orange. And this happened each and every year since the fire department done that. Now, if you're hiring a certified professional to come out here who runs a company down south, you're talking about $2,000 per day per person to come out and work on this. And I've done a lot of work for a lot of different companies in this area, so of course I was coming in helping this place when they needed. I went through the process of showing them exactly what they needed to do to maintain this machine. Each and every year you would have to strip down the machine and clean it, which means stripping it down to the bare roller. Basically, you'd need a lot of sandpaper, wire brushes, drills, lubrication, and high temperature paint. We would sand these things down best we could, took wire brushes to them best we could. I'd absolutely lather the rollers in WD-40, EB Blaster, Deep Creep, oil, whatever could provide a little bit of protection to these rollers from the moisture. After everything dried for about 24 hours, we'd come in and spray it with high temperature paint. You'd have to put some brown paper underneath all these rollers so you didn't get it on the chest because you had to clean the chest too. We did a lot of hard work on this thing just to be able to do some preventative maintenance and to make this thing last a little bit longer. Personally liked ordering my parts from Tingy Brown. The padding on this had to go on a specific way. You would manually have to put pressure on this iron, which meant putting pressure on the chest and the aprons too. To put brand new padding on this machine, each piece of padding for each roller is a different thickness. Had to put it on a specific way. And we would hand crank the machine whenever we wanted to get the padding rolled over. Rolled over, you put the cover on, the springs on, go on to the next one. That's basically what you're seeing in this video here. Me and a crew of the guys that I was working with, along with a few people that worked for the facility, was coming in and maintaining this machine. Now, like I said, my entire objective here was to show the new owner that was taking over what he needed to do to take care of this machine. And I wanted to train the guy that he handpicked to do his maintenance to take care of this machine. And I did what I set out to do. We got this thing put back together again. We got the brand new padding, the covers, the rollers were took care of. It would be good for another year, year and a half. On top of that, we reassembled everything bolt for bolt. This is the company that I went out and invested in them, a brand new toolbox. I filled it plumb full of tools. Anytime that I go out here and I test out tools in the trades like I frequently do, I decide to upgrade some tools, I will give away some of my old tools. I usually don't advertise it here on YouTube, but I will gather them up in a big old box, and then whenever somebody needs some tools, I will gladly help them out. If somebody's going to go out here and learn how to work on their own stuff, I will donate them tools. If I find a technician or a business that's in need of some tools and a technician, I will help them out. That's what I planned on doing with this company right here. But after all the years that I worked with these people's parents, all the things that I've done to try to help them out, there was indeed some bridges burned here. I was so frustrated by the time I got this job done that I just wanted to cut ties with everybody. That's probably one of the things that factored into me wanting to take a step back from doing this sort of work. The other thing was the fact that I am the sole provider right now for 4 of my daughters I'm raising on my own. Now, their mother still tries to co-parent, be involved, do all that sort of stuff, and my girls depend on me right now. And me wrenching about 40 hours a week on automotives, working on boats, turning around and working at places like this right here is just becoming a little bit too much. Especially whenever you come across people who disrespect you. But I didn't say nothing at the time. I knew I was going to do my part, and I was going to do quality work, and I was going to finish everything up that I said I was going to finish up before cutting ties with them. That is exactly what I did whenever this thing was done. It was running like a brand new machine. I like working on stuff like this. That's one of the things I want to encourage people to do. If you don't know how to work on something, you should learn how to work on something. The day that you stop learning is the day that you should go home. You have the skills and the tools to do jobs with, you can do just about anything. The more you learn, the more you can do, the more opportunities you'll have, the more valuable you will be. These are the types of machines that has kept people in business, kept families fed, kept hospitals full of laundry, kept patients took care of, kept local economies going. Things like that are what I want to support. Fortunately, the maintenance technician that they hired on to do this sort of work ended up quitting 2 weeks after I trained them to do this. And that's why I'm going to recommend to you businesses out there to listen to me and listen to me well. You need to take care of your technicians because they're what's going to save you the money. They're what's going to keep your business going. You're the owner, you're running the business, you're cashing the checks, you're enjoying yourself. But these are the guys out here that has the knowledge and the skills and the tools to do these jobs with. If you invest in them, they will gladly invest in you. You have to get these guys the tools that they need to do the job. And their payday should reflect their knowledge and skills that they have to do that job. Businesses like this make it to the 100-year mark, it's great. Unless they're willing to do what they need to do to evolve and stay in business, then they ain't going to stay in business. That's why the day that I left, I already knew exactly what was going to happen to this place. And it's one good reason I'm glad I cut ties with them, because a year and a half after this repair, they announced that they were closing this business for good. It comes down to it, you can't pay your people nothing and expect to do everything for you. It's also kind of ironic, the fact that this place was booming whenever a certain person was president in 2016. Literally survived the 2 world wars that this country went through. They survived evolution and technology. People started getting washers and dryers in their homes. They survived 2 different pandemics, 2 different floods, but they could not survive old Brandon's presidency. That a damn shame. But anyhow, that's going to be it for this video. If you like this content, like I said, pop that, click subscribe. Get to doing that blue collar hustle.